This snow trap is inescapable, and this cannon instantly kills anyone flying with an elytra. And here are 101 ways to ruin your friendships in Minecraft. Just please don't get banned. And hey, according to the YouTube king, no one's ever subscribed to the channel using their right pinky finger. So if you're up to the challenge, point your 5th digit to that red sub button below. It's free, and it helps out a ton. We're gonna turn this drip leaf into a deadly trap. Taken after this user, if we have a big drip leaf plant growing all the way up from bedrock, we can then have our friends chase us over it, letting us escape scot-free, while they fall into a pit and lose their stuff. Though I will say, if you're gonna do this, make sure to build it in a situation where they have to fall on it after you. Otherwise, they could just jump over it instead. This redstone trap is completely invisible, but as soon as you step on the floor, it'll open up to your doom. And the answer to all of this is the new threat of the skulk sensor. But instead, we just wait for your friend to step on their wooden floor, and that'll be loud enough for them to get trapped when they least expect it. I grief for my friend's house, or that's what they think. But the truth actually is that what you see here is not their base, but rather a clever decoy to trick them. After painstakingly rebuilding their house block for block, we can grief it with the usual fire, lava, TNT, you know the works, and then send them screenshots to send our friend into a panic. From there, they log onto the server and get utterly confused as to why it's not in ruins. When my friend wasn't looking, I switched out his dog for one of my own, but by giving our dog the same name tag and collar as theirs, it's nearly identical to the original pet, except this time, he can't right-click to stop it from sitting, which will surely cause some frustration. And to take this all one step further, why not punch the friend so that their supposed man's best friend turns against them? This is a snow block, this is a powdered snow block, and this is a powdered snow block death trap. With the way that Carves designed this, if we bounce a player up and down on a slime block like so, they can't mine fast enough to escape the snowy situation. Even an enchanted netherite shovel can't do the trick, it's that bad. And by adding blocks like crafting tables and furnaces around the perimeter, they can't even right-click to escape. Ouch. Picture this, it's the start of a new world, we're raiding a village with a friend, they go to kill the iron golem for some early ingots, but as they build 3 blocks tall to escape, we accidentally place a brick right here so that the golem can hit them. They suffer the consequences, and now we can grab the iron instead. My friend set up this ender pearl stasis chamber to get himself out of danger, but with a few arrows, we can make that into the opposite. See, if we just drop a handful of arrows bouncing right where we know they'll teleport, we can make sure that whenever they get back, it'll be a real surprise. And to get rid of even the most stacked of players, take after this user Malorum and add some TNT minecarts to seal the deal. My friend's been waiting days for this copper to oxidize, but little does he know, it never will. See, if we just go by and honeycomb a few pieces of copper blocks here and there, it'll be virtually impossible to see what's going on until you pick it up. Or if you want to cause them even more confusion, use a channeling trident with an item frame to purposefully electrify some of their blocks back to full health. That way, we'll be the only ones on the server with a beautiful oxidized roof. This is my friend's house, and this is my friend's house at Build Limit. See, the idea behind this prank is that we use a schematic mod like Lightmatica, copy the exact look of their base, and then rebuild a new version of it way up in the clouds. And at that point, does it even count as griefing if they still have another house to live in? Well, yeah, probably so. But who knows, maybe your friend will enjoy getting upgraded to a penthouse suite. Just make sure to invoice them later. This armor stand could be lethal. Here's why. See, if we were to stack a bunch of these statues into a pit like so, then any friend who happens to fall in can't break through them fast enough to escape. And since we can have multiple in the same spot, even if they do happen to break one, there's still so many more to deal with before they can break out, letting our potion dispensers take care of the rest. Usually, you have a minuscule chance of getting struck by lightning, but with this machine, it's a guarantee. See, by setting up a copper lightning rod with a channeling trident, we can bounce it up and down to create an infinite lightning generator, at which point it's obvious we're going to be using this on your enemies. And thankfully for us, these strikes have a wide area of effect, meaning that even when they start to escape, you can still deal the final blow. Why do we bring this end crystal to the overworld? Well, this simple setup makes for an inescapable death trap. See, after using a lot of pistons in the end, we can push the dragon's respawn crystal through the portal and tuck it into a hole. From there, you have your friend fall in, and they'll be stuck with no way out. If you fly an elytra near my base, this happens. And how do we trigger this? Well, silly as it may seem, we have a cow on top of a pressure plate and unloaded chunks. Then when a player flies nearby, it steps off, and the rest is history. This Minecraft dropper map is impossible, but my friend doesn't know that. And unfortunately for them, that can only end one way, because instead of making this map super challenging, we took after Pofa and instead used invisible blocks to make it unbeatable. And the beauty is that stained glass blocks fade into the water background from up here, and by the time they notice, they'll have fallen off faster than Fortnite. Watch this trap closely, because if you blink, you might just miss what happened. See, what Mr. Cube and Branzy made here is an effective way to teleport someone into the end, and then before they've noticed, it'll kill them in the void. See, all this happens due to a glitch where if you push someone with a piston underneath the end portal, it'll teleport them to the exact coordinates in the end, and unless they're ready with an elytra, that should guarantee a quick kill. Don't trust this boat, because even though it looks innocent enough, one bump into this thing and yeah, you get the picture. So, taken after Prank Master Grian, the way we pull this off is by having a dispenser place a double chest worth of boats on repeat into the water. water. And then we break the setup, wait for an unsuspecting passerby to bump or jump in, and our mess gets unloaded. So make sure you're not around when they need help cleaning up. If you've messed around with gaming glitches, you're probably familiar with the concept of a soft lock. That is, where the game is still playable, but the player can't make any more progress. And while that's usually a sign of lackluster playtesting, today we'll be using it for quite the prank. Now, pulling this off might be tricky, but the idea hinges around getting your friend to set their spawn in a bed that's underneath the end portal, which after that means they can only respawn in the end dimension, with no hopes of escape. And I think that fits our soft lock criteria. Inventory management is a pretty common thing for Minecraft, which is why it's gonna surprise your friend when they realize that they're not picking up any items, even though they have what seems to be empty slots. Because little do they know, while they were AFK, you decided to fill up their inventory with these named light gray stained glass panes. While these things are not only a mouthful, they also do a great job of giving the illusion of an empty slot, but actually there's something there. And honestly, I think this is the only time we can thank Mojang for making the textures for this look so close to the actual blank slots. Clearly, hoppers are a great asset for getting stuff out of containers, but while they're effective, they're not always discreet, and that can cause a big problem for sneaky operation. So to fix that and stay in the shadows, we'll need some different options. Now, maybe that's putting a hopper under a furnace or a barrel instead of a chest so that they can't see the pixels around the edge. Or perhaps you change out their chest for trapped ones so that they can't see any items getting sucked out when they open it, but it'll all funnel out the same when they close it. And really, either of those options will put us leaps and bounds ahead of the regular crooks. Now, if we're being honest, taking the stuff out of their chest is not the difficult part, but hiding those items once you get them is a bit trickier. So to make sure we get away with our findings, it's worth your while to take a trip up to the stars. See, chests and shulker boxes are rendered as entities, meaning if we place some of these up past the clouds next to build height, they won't be rendered from the ground below, giving us a pretty foolproof vault. Just make sure your friend doesn't follow you up that way. Otherwise, our stolen stuff might end up in the wrong hands. Or would it be the right hands? Honestly, I don't know. The best place to put a trap is where you'd least expect it. And I don't know about you, but I generally don't plan on my ladder being the death of me. But after seeing this, I'll have to reconsider. Now, the setup here is actually quite simple, but I love the execution. The idea is that our victim climbs up their ladder, flips the trapdoor to exit, and then that leads to a piston to shift the wall and break all of their ladders. From there, we drop them into lava, TNT, or just about anything else to finish the job, and it's as simple as that. I think we all know that one friend whose chest looked like a Jackson Pollock painting, and truly finding anything in this mess is a real challenge. So I think it's our duty to help them out of their disorganized nightmare. But of course, we won't be doing it for free. So when you pop over to rearrange their things, simply take items out of the rotation while you do. And while I wouldn't recommend doing anything drastic like taking all of their valuables, I think nabbing a few items from a stack here and there should be plenty discreet. And hey, since they were so unorganized from the beginning, they probably didn't even realize they had those items to begin with, let alone know that they were stolen. Building up an animal farm is a lengthy process, and it's an investment that usually pays off. But to keep those dividends from ending up in your neighbor's pockets, then a Vindicator might be your best pick. Now, like this, they aren't as interested in the pigs as they are with us, but add on a Johnny name tag, and now they'll chop up just about anything in sight. Meaning, if we place one of these inside the fence and make it invisible, your friend will have no idea how they're losing all their mobs. At least they'll have no idea until they step inside to check it out. And from there, we can successfully steal their stuff and their foodstuffs to make sure you stay on top. If you've ever taken the time to build a big project in survival, then you're well aware that certain blocks are a pain to collect in bulk. And that's usually why things like quartz and prismarine are tough to justify when you're not in creative mode. So until you get some crazy farm to automate the resources, why don't we just fuel up from your friend's foundation? I mean, using those blocks on the floor seems like a waste, especially since they could be using half slabs instead. So for that matter, what if we gutted parts of their builds and replaced it for cheaper variants? That way, both of us get to use these blocks in our builds, and they won't even notice. Most of the time, when you get rich enough to have stacks and stacks of value blocks, you're not examining them too closely, because let's face it, you're rich, you don't need to. So if you know someone who's reached that upper echelon of wealth, we might need to turn their ignorance into our bliss. And doing so is as simple as an anvil and some decoys. Since if we take something like yellow concrete powder and rename it to a block of gold, then even if you hover over it, it's hard to notice from a quick check. And as long as we don't leave any of the legitimate ones to compare and contrast, this subtle swap out should confuse them at the crafting grid. Now, by all accounts, armor stands seem pretty harmless. After all, they don't have arms, so what's the worst they can do? Well, according to channels like the Horizon, quite a lot actually. Since we can overlap these entities into the same block, we can get a lot of lag in a small footprint. Meaning, after getting enough of these into position, the game's ticks per seconds will slow way down. And then, after dropping these onto a fence with water, the lag gets even worse. And from that point, we continue to drop the TPS and make the server borderline unplayable. Most of the time when people go AFK in Minecraft, it's trying to get something from a farm, which is great and all, but imagine their surprise if when they go to check the farm return chest and there's no items in there. Because, unbeknownst to them, you actually placed a hopper system underneath and stole all of their hard-earned work. Clearly, Minecraft doesn't obey the laws of physics. But even if the game doesn't, there's a certain expectation that you should. would. Which is why if you go around leaving floating trees everywhere around your friend's base, you're sure to force the neat freaks to blow a lid. Just keep in mind that if you do this, get ready for all the lectures that come with it. Because obviously, they're not going to see "I just needed one log" as a logical defense, especially when it leads to such an eyesore. Redstone is a real resource to have in your survival world, and while it allows us to make a bunch of great things, those things also come with a bunch of mining to do. So to save yourself from another trip down to the caves, then why don't we stick to the surface level solution? Literally. That is, if your friend already has a redstone build, then that's a solid supply of dust and repeaters just lying around, waiting to be grabbed. Or if you want a nicer way to steal, then figuring out a way to make their redstone compact that still leaves it up and running can let us shave the extras off the top and keep them satisfied as well. Truth be told, pranks in Minecraft are a lot easier than in real life, but that doesn't mean there isn't any overlap, and this is a great mix of the two. See, in the real world, we usually place a water cup on top of a door, but here we could use TNT instead. And after aligning the minecarts along a chest, we can balance that one pixel just right to keep it steady until someone comes. And then when they open the door to step in, they'll knock the minecarts onto the powered rail, and the rest is history. End cities provide some of the best loot in the game, and chief among those is the Elytra. So it'd be particularly cruel if you were to loot every end city around your spawn and leave no Elytra for your friend to find. And the most evil part about it is that it gets easier to get more Elytra when you have an Elytra, since you can just fly around the end and look out for the cities. I've played on some servers where I can go 10,000 blocks and there's still not an Elytra in sight. It definitely got me putting some of my friends on a list. Storage organization is one of the less glamorous parts of Minecraft. I mean, who wants to sit and look at a chest inventory screen their whole day? So if your friend did put in the hard hours and managed to make their chests look all pretty and nice, then a surefire way to get them angry is to mess with their storage organization. After all, it's a more abstract, naturalistic piece than whatever they had going on earlier. And it can guarantee that as soon as they try to open up their chest and find something, you'll send them into a combination panic attack and headache. If you find that your friend's been getting a little too cocky about their building skills, here's how to get back at them. Now, lucky for us, Minecraft doesn't have zoning laws, which means that a simple way to devalue their pretty house is to build the complete opposite right next to it. By throwing together a mix of dirt pillars and all kinds of junk right next door, you'll give them quite the sight to see out their windows. Falling into the void is a bad time, everyone knows that. But while you expect that hazard in the end, the overworld is a different story, because after seeing RecRap's video on the subject, this plan just might come into fruition. Now, sure, the time that it takes to break all the bedrock is a big investment, and to commit to pulling this off, you really need to hold a grudge. But come on, imagine your friend's reaction when they not only fall when they least expect it, but they also lose all their items in the void as well. It's just too perfect. If your friend's an introvert, then it's your responsibility to introduce them to new people. And while you could do that by inviting a bunch of new friends and players to the server, I think a much simpler option is just by trapping a whole bunch of villagers next to them. These mobs know how to party, and anyone who's ever played Minecraft with sounds on know that they love to talk. So this is sure to get your friend busted out of their shell. So either they'll have to push their way through the crowd, or decide to kill the party a little too soon. And while both of those work, one of them might just make the Iron Golem bouncers a little angry when they get outside. Now, we're all well and familiar with the concept of creeper holes, and while these eyesores typically get filled in, some players aren't as polite, and that lack of manners can lead to something of an infestation. So to teach the server a lesson on the importance of filling in their hollow holes, why don't we try something like this? Simply remove the blocks underneath the surface and then cover it up with topsoil. Then, after enough time, the mobs will spawn and give whoever cleans them up quite the startle. Chickens can be pretty annoying. After all, they keep laying eggs, so usually we just end up with way more of these items than we need. But in this case, we can use that to our advantage. See, for our master plan, all we need to do is load up a bunch of chickens on a hopper like so, and then every time they lay an egg, it's fired out of a dispenser in a hidden location. Place this at your friend's base, and before they know it, they'll be inundated with baby chickens, all the while confused about where they came from. Now, by design, AFK players don't get to do much. So if you want to take your friends sightseeing, then there's no better way to do it than by building a one-way elevator right up to build limit. Whether you use pistons, a flying machine, or more likely a bubble elevator with soul sand, it's completely possible to ship them right up to the top of the world, and if you want to, you can leave them there stranded. If your friend's been hyping up their new set of fully enchanted netherite armor, it can get pretty annoying, especially if you're still lagging behind and trying to get the other materials. So to even the playing field a bit, how about we build a helmet breaker trap? As it turns out, if you put anvils like so and have them drop into a bubble stream elevator, then after enough tough time falling, the game actually treats it like they're falling from an immense height. And luckily for us, that means they're going to do a whole bunch of damage to your friend's helmet, meaning next time they're sure to AFK less and maybe keep their mouth shut. Now, by themselves, these zombies aren't much of a pain, but packing a whole bunch of them, we've got something even scarier: lag. And that, folks, is the last thing you want on a server. So to give your friends a tough time, why don't we use an undead union of our own? After grabbing a bunch of zombies, lay down a pile of items, and then wait for them to pick it up. And from there, once their hands are stuffed, those suckers aren't going to despawn, giving us the mobile lag machine to place right inside your friend's base. At some point, I'm sure you've seen one of these chests, the type where folks just dump any and all of their enchanted books in with reckless abandon. And while it's disorganized, that's a factor that we can use to our advantage. See, from this zoomed out view, all enchantment books look the same, meaning unless you hover over, you can't tell the difference between an efficiency 2 and an efficiency 2735. So to play this prank, we'll just be swapping out their high value books for level 1 enchant instead. And as long as they don't have a resource pack to visualize which is which, we should get by scot-free. Sometimes you gotta spend a little to make a lot, and this is one of those cases. Now say you were to purchase or acquire a second account. Well, tell the server owner you'll be inviting a friend of yours to join, get them whitelisted, and then once you're on and playing as the new account, simply ask the more experienced players on the server for help and handouts. Odds are that they'll give you just tools and resources for free, all of which is worthwhile. And after you milk that pity, stash it in a chest, and then give some excuse why the new account had to stop playing, letting us get back on our main account and take our newly found gifts for us. Trapping an AFK friend in a bunch of blocks is a good start, but if they got the proper tools, they're gonna go through it pretty fast, meaning that overall it's a short-lived prank. So if you want to step up this simple one to the next level, all you gotta do is just make sure that the blocks you trap them in are waterlogged. Just like that, every single stair and slab that they decide to take out is just gonna splash more and more water into their face. Which means that if they don't have buckets, or at least aqua affinity, that's going to slow down the process of getting rid of them so much more. It's definitely a great way to annoy them when they decide to come back. Carpets can add a nice little bit of detail to a house, but they can just as easily be militarized, since when you look down on it, you can't tell what block's underneath. Meaning that if we were to say, put a magma block underneath the carpet, your friend wouldn't have any idea until they walked into their house and started burning alive. Best yet, magma blocks don't catch anything around them on fire, meaning you're able to set up this trap and they'll have no clue until they actually step on top of it. If you've been playing Minecraft for a while, then the changes to ores in 1.17 definitely take some time to get used to. And I'll still find my friends smelting their silk touched ores instead of using fortune, which is unfortunate, but it gives us a golden opportunity. See, if you were to grab your friend's collected ores, whether out of a super smelter or a chest in the mines, then we can choose to use our fortune on it for better yield. And after that, simply smelt the ones that they would have gotten anyway. Meaning if they're expecting a 1-to-1 return on their iron, they'll get as much. But that'll allow us to take the extras for profit. At some point, we've all known someone who just cuts down every single tree in sight. And of course, they never replant them either, which leads to the base looking barren and empty. So to prevent against that, let's take after this Reddit user and stick a surprise on our trees. With this, they can't see the trap, but sure enough, as soon as they chop down all the logs, they'll be treated to quite a few anvils from the sky. And then that way, even if they steal your oak, you can just grab it up with the rest of their items. Setting a creeper up in your friend's base is a good thought, but if they happen to leave the area, then you do have to worry about that pesky despawning. So to remedy that, all you gotta do is name the creeper so that it stays in place. And plus, giving the creeper a name also gives you more room to mess with your friends, meaning as soon as they get home, they'll be introduced to a new friend and they'll see him out the door just as quickly. Cobwebs down in the mines are annoying enough, but if you fill up your friend's house with them, then they're sure to get a little angry. The beautiful thing is that even if they have the proper tool to get rid of cobwebs, by the nature of the beast, it's still gonna take them so long to get rid of all of them. So if you take the time to fill out every nook and cranny in their house, you're basically guaranteeing they have an afternoon of cleanup. But hey, for what it's worth, it's not a destructive prank and it really doesn't have any long-term effects. Just tell them that you're installing some extra insulation, I'm sure they'll be happy with it. Having a fully powered beacon is a big flex, and one entirely made of netherite is another level. But if your friend managed to secure one of these before you did, it's not worth letting them keep that kind of treasure. So in that case, we can devalue their greatest asset without them even noticing. See, since the beacon has so many layers, we have free reign to hollow out the innermost blocks and then cover up the shell to still leave them in the dark. Or if you're worried about any suspicion that might come when their haste 2 drops down to a haste 1, then just fill in the middle blocks with something less valuable like iron, and they'll be none the wiser. If blowing up your friend's house seems like a good idea, it, but you don't want dirt on your hands, then here's how to get away clean. Because as you can see, it wasn't you that caused all those holes, it was just a bunch of creepers. And of course, since you didn't have the blocks, you didn't happen to fill them in, any of them. And trust me, after a while of these creeper holes stacking up, they're gonna hope that one day you step a little too close to that creeper and both of their problems wash away in an instant. 1.15 got a lot of different people excited for the buzzing bee mob. And while I gotta fully admit that they are adorable, they can be used as a tool of evil. Case in point, if you went through the effort of trapping a bunch of bees underneath your friend's floorboards while they're AFK, then when they log back in, not only are they gonna be treated to a horrible sound on the eardrums, but also when they break a hole to go check out, they might just hit one of the bees, and then all of a sudden, the entire swarm is gonna be directed right at them, making it both a terror to listen to and to be on the receiving end of. Exploring with your friend can be a great bonding experience, but it can just as easily turn south. Say for example, you head into a bastion with them, and while you're going through the chest, you just loot everything without even asking them what they want. If you turn this buddy trip into a first come first serve operation, you're definitely gonna get yourself on their naughty list. Even better still is if you happen to do this while they're still fighting off the piglins. And then when they ask, just tell them there was nothing good in the chest, because by this point, there really isn't. Scaffolding is a pretty useful tool, and a big part of that is how easy it is to clean up. But as some have pointed out, that speed can just as easily be turned to the dark side. As is, if we prep something dangerous like a lava bucket or an anvil up top, then when your friend comes by to break it, they'll be treated to a nasty surprise from above. And the best part, they can't even reasonably build up the blocks to stop it. So while they try and save their stuff, you can sit back and enjoy the show. Say your friend's AFKing at something below ground, like a spawner for example, and then as soon as they're done, they're looking to exit through their bubble elevator. But unbeknownst to them, you placed multiple different arrows of harming right at the top of the bubble stream, guaranteeing that when they try to swim out, those entities are going to be right there waiting for them and might just kill them right at the top of the stream. And luckily enough for you, if you choose to wait at the top of that stream, you're going to have a whole bunch of new items delivered right up to the top. Wooden bases lend themselves so well to being disrupted, but a casual way to get on your friend's bad list might just be by stripping the logs accidentally in their builds. The good thing about this is that it's easy to write off as a mistake, but it definitely still leaves hideous blotches in your friend's block palette. Meaning with just a couple misclicks, you can just as easily have them spending their time having to fix your errors. Moss seems like a pretty harmless block, but add in some bone meal and that bit of vegetation can turn into serious devastation. And that's what we're focusing on today. As you'll see, because this block is so good at recruiting, we can wreak some serious havoc at the different bases on the server. And again, the cost is as cheap as a few stacks of bone meal, making this really easy to pull off. So while the stone hoe will make the cleanup quick, it still takes a lot of work to put back to normal. Though honestly, I think it looks quite nice. We all know that one person on the server who has way too many animals at the farm, and at this point it's starting to seem like a problem. So to cut that back and give them a lesson on the importance of free range, why don't we do them a favor and continue to breed those animals? See, by overcrowding their pig pen, we guarantee that at a certain point, the entity cramming kicks in and that ruins their fun. Falling into water is a staple of Minecraft safety, which means no one will expect their water chute to be a kill chamber instead. And while we've done this with Lapis in the past, I think this is even better. See, with vertical redstone, we can have them fall through a tripwire and then change our water drop into a lava one instead, causing both a sudden death and a loss items. And since we use the block updates caused by a moving wall with a piston, the redstone to do this is instantaneous, meaning they'll be none the wiser for what's in store. Through the use of scaffolding blocks, bamboo can be a pretty helpful thing to have on hand. So if your friend doesn't live next to a jungle and they haven't learned this yet, then how about paying them a little lesson? This is one of the quintessential lose-lose situations. Because on one hand, if they decide to leave it all up, that bamboo is not easy to navigate. But on the flip side, if they decide to take it down with a max efficiency axe, then there's going to be so many items falling from the sky that it might just lag out their entire client, making both options, in turn, pretty slow to deal with. Running a successful shop in the server is quite literally a tough business, and it can be particularly difficult if your friends already have what you're selling. So to make our fireworks business into a necessity, we'll need to sabotage their farms. And luckily, there's some sneaky ways to do just that. By putting slabs on the floor of the creeper farm, we can make sure that no more of the mobs spawn, which from there, they'll have no way to get their ingredients, and we can ride their bad luck right to the bank. Setting up an automatic system in Minecraft can take a lot of work, so what better way to take down your friend than by ruining one of their machines? Auto smelting arrays are a great pick for this, because it's so easy to put a non-smeltable block like dirt up into the top funnel and completely ruin their design. And since it's not immediately obvious, they'll be so confused when they go to try and do an actual smelting job and just find that nothing's cooking up for them. Maybe it's just me, but whenever I play in an SMP, one of my friends always turns into a cold-hearted businessman. So if some of you out there are the same and you're looking to fulfill that entrepreneurial lifestyle, this is the one for you. You see this AFK friend? Well, that's our supplier. All you gotta do is kill them, collect their stuff and then put it into a shop at spawn. Just like that, you got a whole bunch of stuff to sell. And fortunately for you, a customer that just happened to lose all their items. Which means that when they try to buy their items back, you can sell them at the most absurd prices. So either they buy it back, or they might just start at square zero. Villager trading is a lucrative concept, and more often than not, the person who gets the best trades winds up being the richest on the server. So to stop your friend from getting decked out in mending enchanted armor, we'll need to use a doppelganger of our own. No offense to them, but the villagers all look alike. A bold statement, I know. Meaning we could change out their librarian for one that looks the exact same and play it off pretty easily. And hey, we could even claim that there was a glitch with the server's data that caused it to reset, which might be cruel, but don't worry, we've got our own trades to worry about now. Let's be honest, no one likes waiting for crops to grow, and sometimes that waiting game can feel like forever. But in this case, it's actually true. See, while our friend wasn't looking, we snuck in and placed string tripwire along the top of their bamboo and sugarcane, which when standing back here is an almost imperceptible change. But it means that the crops cannot grow past that point. Meaning if you do this inside the mechanics of a redstone farm, they'll be totally confused as to why it stopped working. Nothing beats the comfort of your own bed, but with a machine like this, we can turn those sweet dreams into straight up nightmare fuel. And to set it up, we've got a couple of different options, but all of which are based around a manipulation of the respawn mechanics to make sure that our friends always wake up in a lava bath. So while prisons like Pandora's Vault are a lot more flashy, this cuts down to the basics and works just the same. So I'd suggest checking your next bed very carefully. Trapping your friends in Minecraft is a real joy, but in a game where even bedrock could be destroyed, how do you keep them from breaking out? Well, according to the evil masterminds of the community, we've got a solution like this to do the trick. See, when we lay it out like such, even our best tools are practically useless to bust us out. And I'm guessing your friend gives up on escaping before any of these give out. Being buried alive is a pretty common fear, and rightfully so, but what if we tried to replicate this in Minecraft? If your friend decides to step away from the computer for an hour, then that gives you just enough time to bury them into a hole, cover them up with blocks, and then build whatever you want on top of it. Now personally, my favorite is to place an entire build limit height pillar of sand on top of them, because there you got one of two options. Either it's going to suffocate them if they don't have the tool, or it's going to wear down plenty of their shovel. Now, when you want to send a message to an AFK player, there's a couple of different ways to do it. Now, most obvious is probably doing it through something like Discord, but if you want to get a bit more creative, you could ditch the sign and instead use a named mob to actually kill them with a death message. Just like that, when they log back in, they're sure to see a respawn screen labeled perfectly with whatever you name the monster. Well, that's just one example. There's plenty of different ways to get your friends surprised when they log back in. Dying is one thing, but adding insult to injury, yeah, that's gonna hurt a lot more. Now, using sea lanterns with snow-covered maps is already a famous way to trap your friends. An infinity room, a matrix room, whatever you want to call it, it's been done before. And while I still fully love this design, there's still more we can do with this. Like, for example, what if we trap them in a different color? All of a sudden, that white infinity room of nothingness turns into a blue screen of death. Anyone who plays on Windows is already pre-programmed to get a shock of horror when they see this shade of blue on their screen, so it's a pretty good way to give them a jump and a startle when they come back onto the server. Anyone who's ever played on a server without one player's sleep added in knows just how painful AFK players can be. Because sure enough, they're not sleeping, and after a while that means you can't sleep, causing phantom problems for everyone on the server. But what's so cruel about it is that if they have a roof over their heads, they're not even dealing with the repercussions. So to show your AFK friend just what they're putting you through, why not take a little bit of the roof off and watch as they finally meet the mobs that they introduced you to. And from there, I'll leave it up to you whether you decide to let the phantoms kill them or just teach them a lesson. If you're jealous of your friend's set of armor, but you're not looking to jump to stealing just yet, then there's a different way to make it disappear. And of course, that's Curse of Vanishing. By adding one of these evil books to each piece of their armor, you're pretty much guaranteeing that they won't wear it out anymore. Because if you run the risk of the armor disappearing upon death, then even the best netherite can seem like a complete dud. When someone decides to go AFK in a common place like their base, they feel pretty safe. That is, until you came around and decided to rearrange multiple different choice things around the base. Whether that's moving the chest from the left wall to the right, changing out their block palette, or my personal favorite of flipping the entire thing upside down. Whatever you choose to do, this is definitely a great way to confuse your friends when they come back. And if you want to take on an early lesson in gaslighting, you can just play it off like nothing ever changed. Tons of effort has gone into making all the different sound effects in Minecraft, and sometimes those go underappreciated. So why not put a few of them on display by building a noise machine right next to your friend's house? Through the help of observers, these things get super super easy to build. And trust me, even if you know nothing about redstone, that's not going to hold you back from building a total nightmare for your friends' ears. If you're feeling guilty about stealing your friend's stuff, it might put you at ease to see just how little they'll notice it when it's gone. Case in point, sneak a barrel block behind their chest like so. If you tuck it just right, it's barely noticeable, but we can still reach around the edges to use it as usual. Then subtly move the items from the chest back to the barrel behind it. And then if you come back later and see that the stuff's still there, then I take that as a good sign that it's probably nothing they'll miss. Or at the very least, it's not urgent. And that proof of concept might be enough to put your mind at ease. Casinos don't have a great reputation, but despite that, people still go back to them every single day. See, it's not our fault if they opt into playing our sleazy game. I mean, it does offer a great prize and all, but while they think they have a chance, the truth is that the machine is only designed to give back lesser rewards with nothing great in the rotation. And as long as they don't check out the redstone behind the curtain, this is sure to be a valuable lesson for them to learn. Or at least, it'll be valuable to us. To maintain a good farm in Minecraft, you gotta keep a strict routine. So if you want to throw off your farmhand friend's rotation, then all you gotta do is harvest their crops without sharing or replanting any of the goods. By doing this, you can very well force them back to square one on their farm. Or at the very least, you'll have made them waste a cycle of waiting, which I think none of us want to go through again. So while they're lamenting about their lost harvest, you'll be able to talk about the greatest yield you've had in your life. When we talk about resources, we're usually picturing things like valuable minerals or maybe common building blocks. But folks, that's only scratching the surface. And if you want to get the best of your friends on the server, every little bit counts. So if they're foolish enough to leave enchanted items in a chest just standing there, whether at a farm or not, then why not take them out and put them through a grindstone instead? That way, we profit off the extra bits of EXP while they get left in the dust. I mean, it's something small enough where people won't care in the moment, but once we jump ahead to having a fully enchanted suit for ourselves, then they'll realize their mistake. When it comes to stealing items, we never want to do anything too obvious. And with that, it means we should take just what we need and not get too greedy. Or greedier, at least. And I think this system does the trick. See, let's say your friend has a high-powered mob farm up and running, but all we need to do is just poach some gunpowder for our fireworks. Well, to be more discreet, a sorting system like this helps us out, since they'll still have the illusion of big returns, yet we can sneakily scrape together the profits that we need. And as long as they're satisfied with the bones and flesh, our machinations should go undetected. The best way to pull off something evil is to pretend it's a good deed. I mean, even the Greeks knew that was a good idea. So to use our form of a Trojan horse, we'll need to secure a creeper companion. From there, lead it towards your friend's chest, have it explode, and then, when you offer to help put the items back, simply pinch the ones you'd like to keep. I mean, they'll be caught in such a frenzy that they likely won't notice a few items gone missing, especially if the creeper happened to explode a tower of chests like this one. So it's a win-win. We seem like a good friend, all the while we pull off our heist. Everyone knows that when you break all the logs in a tree, the leaves should disappear, but that doesn't explain why these are still left standing hours after the trunk. And no, this doesn't have anything to do with update suppression or changing the random tick speed, but rather, we just replace the leaves on our friends' trees with ones of our own. Then, once we place them back down, these decoration blocks can no longer despawn over time, which not only gives them an eyesore, but it also guarantees a couple of chores for them to clean up. Anvils are great, but they can quickly get problematic. And I think we're all familiar with this message that the cost has gotten too expensive. It's a rough sight for sure, but one we can use to prank our friends. Now, if your friend is reckless enough to leave their tools lying about in a chest or an item frame, then that's your perfect opportunity. In that case, we grab the tools and then change them up a bunch to drag up the costs. Then, when done, you make it look like the original, and they'll be quite surprised next time they go to repair and they can't even do it. I don't think I'm breaking any new ground by saying that netherite tools are a high-value item, but getting a set of our own requires a lot of time and a lot of luck. So it'd be a shame if your friend's spare set just sat there collecting dust when we could use it instead. And to fix that, we have a pretty cheap solution. As you'll notice, enchanted stone tools look virtually indistinguishable from a netherite set, meaning if we were to make some decoys and swap them in, preferably named the same way as their previous pickaxe, then as long as they don't have advanced tooltips enabled, this facade should last long enough for us to trade out what we need. Let me know if this has happened to you. You're playing on an SMP with friends, each of you making progress at the same time, until one of you gets a bit too eager and then slays the dragon by themselves. It's a frustrating realization for sure. So to keep that final destination off limits, our solution comes down to dripstone. By dropping a couple of these from a tall height, we guarantee that whoever goes through the portal next is in for a short trip. And folks, this will even work regardless of their armor, making it a perfect addition for your next manhunt trap. Who doesn't love a good maze? And while building these out of leaves and stone is a bit more common, they don't exactly raise the stakes. So if you really want to guarantee that your friend's on edge when they come back in, then all you gotta do is build a lava wall maze around them. If you're not prepared, these things are definitely a pain to navigate. Is it cruel to do? Well, I won't lie to you. It absolutely is. But is it also fun? Well, most definitely. And honestly, this might be the most cursed maze ever made ever since the Greeks were around. Camouflage is a time-honored tactic. I mean, why else would chameleons exist? It's basic science, folks. So if you don't have the resources yet for an invisibility potion, this could be the time for some lizard brain ingenuity. And the execution is surprisingly simple. All we need to do is swap out our skin for one of the many any camouflage ones you can find online, preferably one that actually blends in with their base and doesn't stick out, and then we can sneak behind them while they're inside to loot the goods. Is it ridiculous? Yeah, absolutely. But it worked for Technoblade, so that's enough proof for me. Just please hold the sneak key while you do it. The different mob heads that you get from charged creepers make for great trophies in Minecraft, but they're not exactly doing much there, so if you decide to take the creeper off your shelf and instead put it on your head, then let's get ready to scare your friend when they get back online. Doing a setup like this, all you gotta do is chug an invisibility potion, put yourself right in their line of sights, and get ready to scare them. When they log back in, they might just be so startled that they don't know what to do, which means that if you're super cruel, you can use them trying to get away to go right into another trap of your design and might just kill them. If your friend uses any cobblestone in their paths, then this is the perfect way to make them lose their sanity. You see, by setting up a cobblestone generator with pistons right underneath one cobblestone block, then after every so interval, it'll pop up a new cobblestone block out of the floor, meaning they'll walk by, get confused, and break it, only to find the same block is back the next morning. And since most of the time they'll just break the top block and not look beneath, this prank is great for causing long-term stress to your poor pal. Now, in a sandbox game like Minecraft, it's very tough to follow the rules, which almost guarantees that if you put a chest with a sign that says "Do not open," your friend's gonna open it. So how about using that to your advantage and instead have it so that TNT gets set off and then all of the sand around it breaks and they fall down into a pit. Personally, this reminds me of one of the cruelest traps that ever existed in Hunger Games. And better yet, they can't say you didn't warn them. I mean, it's written out in plain English. Do not open this chest. They opened it, they deserve what's coming for them. If you're sick of your friends raiding the end islands before you can, this might be the solution. As you'll notice, every time we go through the gateway to the outer end, we always land at the same block, which means we can plant a trap like so to guarantee any future visitors have a bad time. And furthermore, using TNT minecarts like this will make this whole thing explode faster than you could possibly subscribe to the channel, which pretty much guarantees a sudden death. Let's say your friend is a big fan of the ocean, but foolishly on them, they built their base right in the heart of a desert biome. Obviously, that's a pretty dry place to be, so thanks to you cleaned it up for them and turned their entire house into an aquarium. And folks, I'm talking the whole 9 yards. Water source blocks everywhere, seagrass, kelp, fish, you name it. And hey, speaking of that, we don't exactly want them to drown down here, so why don't you give them some form of air pocket with a sign or a door? That way this jovial redecoration isn't exactly turning into a hit job. What can be a useful tool for redstone can just as easily be a weapon, and these bombs show as much. See, by laying out our sensors on either end of this activator rail, we make this trap unbreakable, since if they take out any of the blocks nearby, the sounds trigger the pulse and it starts the explosion. And at that point, they might as well relocate, since there's really only one way to get rid of it. Once you've branded yourself as the prankster, it's hard to get people to trust you, which is usually a shame, but today we can use that to our advantage, because even if your friend doesn't trust a random pressure plate, we can still use that as a trigger for our trap, since once they break the pressure plate, it then goes down into a hopper system and then sets off a comparator to explode our TNT minecarts, which is a fantastic reverse card in my eyes. And it's something that could work particularly well in a predetermined desert temple, just saying. Unless they decide to use a macro or way down a key on their keyboard, AFK players aren't the most active. So to fix that, one of my favorite things to do is put my AFK friends inside of an AFK loop-de-loop machine like this. Through the help of slime blocks, pistons, and ice blocks, you're able to completely get them cycling around this perpetual motion machine, giving them enough motion to make sure they don't get kicked for being AFK, and you quite the spectacle to watch as they're trapped. While there are plenty of different ways to move around your AFK buddy, one of the best ones might just be sending them to an entirely different dimension. If you got the time and the obsidian to set this up, then you can actually build a full nether portal around them, ship them over to the other dimension, and then break the portal on the other end. From there, you're guaranteeing that as soon as they log back in, if they're not prepared with obsidian, they've got no way to get back to the overworld. Resource packs can be such a huge help in Minecraft, but if you're more in touch with the dark side, they can just as easily be used as tools of mischief. Like say for example, you give your friend this texture pack that makes all diamond ore look like stone. That way, when they head down into the mines, they just think they're the most unlucky person alive. While at the same time, they're just leaving all of these diamonds in their wake. Meaning at that point, you can just fall into the mines after they're done and pick up all the diamonds that they left behind. After all, they did all the heavy lifting, it'd be a shame if it went to waste. Nobody likes mining fatigue, but it's not exactly easy to dispense that effect onto your friend. Although, if you're really looking to put the effort in, then why not hijack an Elder Guardian out of an ocean monument and bring it right underneath your friend's base? As long as they're in the range of the effect, they'll get constantly hit by the mining fatigue and have no clue where it's coming from. Meaning, if you drop one of these beasts into a nearby cave surrounded in obsidian and they have no milk to help them out, they're gonna have a tough time dismantling your trap. I'd venture that in most people's worlds, horses don't get a lot of use, but what they lack as a form of travel, especially when compared to the elytra, they more than make up for as a status symbol. And that's even more true when they're fitted with a rare piece of horse armor. So to take your friend's prized steed down a peg, we might need to fill in a facade. By using dyed leather horse armor, we can get pretty close to the iron and gold variants that they're used to. And if you want to be extra dubious, then it is always possible to swap out their horse for one that has the same pattern. And that way we can steal both their stats and their status. Finding diamonds in Minecraft should be cause for celebration, but with a setup like this, that excitement is short-lived. See, if you really want to prank your friends on the server, then why not head down to the mines and booby trap the various ores? All it takes is an observer angled the right way, and we can use that block update to end their excursion. Really, it's that simple to pull off. And with a quick fuse, there'll be nothing more than a pile of items before they could even finish counting their diamonds. Anyone who's ever tried to escape a cave system that's underneath an ocean knows the pain of this one. Because really, if you want to trigger some frustration amongst your friends, then all you gotta do is just trap them in this short staircase and flow water from the top. Especially if you're playing around in versions before the aquatic update, then they're gonna have to slowly meander up every single block to get up to the top. It's quite the punishment, but hey, it's not like they're gonna drown or anything, so it's pretty safe to pull off. When you're playing on a server, lag is a common frustration, and unfortunately, some of us experience it more than others. So if you want to get back at that friend with high-speed internet, this door is the perfect prank. Now, the mechanics at play are fairly simple. All that's happening is that once they stand on the pressure plate, it only opens once they step off. And as some of us know, this is indistinguishable from a laggy server connection, meaning they'll be stuck doing this little shuffle back and forth, and they'll never be able to get inside. Now, in most cases, I think the Curse of Binding enchantment is a pretty lame prank, but where you can really put this to use is by putting the Curse of Binding enchantment on a carved pumpkin. Yeah, for some reason, Mojang was devious enough to let this work, meaning that if you use a dispenser to put this on your friend's head, they're never going to be able to get it off. Or rather, they're not going to be able to get it off in any kind of nice fashion. Either they choose to live out life where they're practically blinded, or they're going to have to end themselves pretty quick. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?